Hello, everybody, and welcome to Winter RVing Tips and Tricks. My name is Jenny Adrenogen Milton, and for those of you who don't know me, I have been into traveling to Alaska now for about 24 years, and I love helping people with snow kiting and backcountry adventures. And lately, I've had quite a few people asking me about RVing. And that's something I've been doing now for 23 years. So I'd love to share some of those tips and tricks with you if you're interested in traveling in your RV or maybe renting an RV to go on a winter adventure. As I mentioned, my name's Jenny Milton. You can probably tell by my accent, I am from Australia. And it's been 24 years now that I've been going up to Alaska. And that first year, I went heli skiing and I stayed in a hotel. And boy, was I jealous of those people who were living in RVs at the base of the mountain. I would get there the next day and they'd go, wow, we saw the Northern Lights last night. And I'd be, no, I didn't see them in town. And they would be getting up early in the morning and putting their skins on and going on an adventure before I even got up there. So I realized that if I was going to come back again, and I made that decision after that very first trip, when I came back again, I was going to need to do the RV thing and be one of those lucky people parked in the car park at the base of those mountains in Thompson Pass. And that's exactly what I did. And over the years, it's now been, as I mentioned, 24 years. I've actually got the skills now as a backcountry guide, a snow kite instructor. I actually coach people on fear and courage and confidence. I'm a keynote speaker. And yes, I am an adrenaline junkie. That's why they call me Adrenogen. So in March and April and May, this is exactly where you're going to find me. You're going to find me in one of the car parks in Thompson Pass, just out of Valdez, and that's my adventure playground. Look at that. What a backyard. But how did I get there? After the first trip to Alaska and seeing those people in the RVs, I went back to Australia and I made the decision that I needed to change my life. And so I sold my house, I sold my business, I sold my sports car, and I put some money into flying over back to the USA with my mountain bike in a box. And I was going to buy myself an RV and travel around Alaska for 12 months. And so I put my mountain bike together when I got there, and I was driving up and down the main road of Seattle to all of the RV dealerships. Now, in Seattle, there are lots of RV dealerships. How's it going, Dennis? Nice to see you. I'm just telling my story about being in Seattle and buying my first RV. And so I'm on my mountain bike, riding up and down this road where there's multiple RV dealers, and I'm checking out the RVs. And I didn't know a lot about RVs. I knew about what size I wanted. My dad had told me to kick the tires, although I didn't really know what kicking the tires told me. But anyway, I couldn't find anybody to help me. No one would actually come over and answer my questions. So I just cruised around and checked out these RVs by myself. And after I'd been to a couple of dealers, I saw one that I wanted to ask some questions about. And so I finally found this guy and he was cleaning one of the RVs. I said, excuse me, can you answer some questions, please? I need to learn about this RV. I want to buy an RV. And he's like, you want to buy an RV? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm going to buy an RV. I'm going to travel around Alaska by myself for 12 months. I'm ready to buy one. I've just got to choose which RV I wanted. And so I'd found this 24-foot Coachman Catalina, and it was in good condition, didn't have too many miles on it. He told me it was roadworthy and it had a check and everything like that. And he said, you probably want to test drive it. And I went, yeah, that's probably a good idea, except I've never actually driven on that side of the road before. And he was like, oh my gosh, an Aussie. And she's about to drive this expensive motorhome and she's never driven on the other side of the road before. And so I could see this worried look on his face. And he said, okay, I've got an idea. I'll go and get the keys. And we jumped in it and he drove. He said, I'm going to take you somewhere, a good, safe place for you to test drive. And he drove me straight to Walmart in Seattle, and it had a massive car park out the back. And luckily, there weren't too many people parked there. And I did my test drive of this RV, driving around in circles in the Walmart parking lot because he thought that was safer than me being out on the highway. And he was probably right. Now, he jumped back in, we drove back to the RV, and I said, "Okay, I'll take it." He went, "Wow, okay." And I found out later that he wasn't one of the salespeople, because none of the salespeople actually wanted to serve this girl in bike shorts riding an RV. So riding a mountain bike into an RV dealership, they thought I didn't have enough money and I wasn't serious. But I said to him, "No, I'm going to buy that RV and I'm going to buy it off you." And he went, "Oh my gosh." And he'd never sold an RV before, and we did all the paperwork. And that was how I bought my first RV, and I picked it up a couple of days later. They had to get all the paperwork and finance in place, and then I drove myself to Alaska. And what a year that was. I made so many dreams come true, and I got to see so many amazing places. I wanted to ski mountains with no names. I wanted to see polar bears in the wild. I wanted to drive every road that I could possibly drive in Alaska. And do you know what? I made all of those things happen. But not only did I make dreams come true, I made a lot of mistakes in that RV too. I learned the hard way that there are things you should and you shouldn't do in an RV. And I'd love to share some of those with you tonight. So, whether you are already a van and an RV person, whether you are thinking about chasing powder as a skier or a snowboarder, or maybe you actually just want to go up to Alaska and chase the northern lights. There I am. This is only 2 years ago, parked in the car park and watching the northern lights, which happens a lot if you are up in Alaska in February, March, and into early April, especially if you're up north near Fairbanks. So no matter what reason you want to travel around in the wintertime, I am going to share some tips with you. Now, where I spend most of my time is in Valdez, Alaska, which is the snowiest city in the northern USA. And so, dealing with parking and snow and RVs and cold, there's a lot of tricky things that you may not have to deal with if you're just driving your RV or van in winter in the lower 48, unless you're cruising around ski resorts, which is a lot of fun. You're going to have to deal with snow on the roof. You're going to have to deal with snowy roads. You're going to have to deal with trying to stay warm. And no matter how much you want to turn this RV into a nice, warm, cozy house with all the luxuries from home, it is closer to camping in a tent. I call it glamping, and it really is just camping instead of a soft shelled tent, you are in a hard shell RV. And it's not for everybody, right? It is not for everybody, but there are so many benefits. So thank you guys for coming to my talk tonight. I really appreciate you joining me and allowing me to share my knowledge with you of my RVing. Why am I doing this? After all these adrenaline adventures, something happened this year which kind of shocked my system. I was diagnosed with brain aneurysms, and to be honest, I've had 3 brain surgeries this year. And I remember lying in ICU after my first brain surgery and listening to Tony Robbins, trying to find some positivity in the incidents that were going on in my life. And he said to me, "Is there more knowledge in a graveyard or a library?" And boy, did that question hit me hard in my heart. And I thought to myself, wow, I don't even know if I'm going to survive these brain surgeries and what's happening to me. A lot of people have a stroke and die with brain aneurysms. I better get out there and share my knowledge. And so I'm writing children's books, I'm speaking on stages and podcasts, and I am trying to share my knowledge of my skills and my life and my adventures and my stories with anybody out there who would like to listen and who that can help. So let's get back to talking about winter RVing. And when I was putting together the talk tonight, I decided that really I'm going to be talking to three different sorts of people. I might be talking to people who want to buy an RV for their winter travels. I had a few people ask me, what's the best RV to buy if I want to chase powder snow and spend a lot of time in the winter? Maybe you want to find out some of the improvements you can do to your RV or van to make it more comfortable for winter adventures. Or maybe you want to rent an RV and find out how you can best turn that rental RV into something that is comfortable. And when I was thinking about all those things, I saw my good friend Andrew Muse suddenly put his ultimate RV, which he built and designed for winter camping, up on the marketplace. So if you have a big budget to buy an RV, I'm going to recommend that you look at something like this, which is a Ford 550 4x4, which has a custom built camper on the back, which is insulated. It has diesel heaters. It has, oh my gosh, this thing is luxury. It has wood ceilings. It is beautiful. And that to me, I'm going to classify as the ultimate winter adventure mobile if you've got a big budget. But if you don't have that sort of budget, then I'm going to recommend checking out something called Bigfoot RVs. Now, Bigfoot RVs is a brand that comes out of Canada, and it's one of only a couple of different RV companies that actually build RVs for winter use. And so, being built in Canada, those guys have a lot of cold weather up there, and they have designed these RVs to have 2 inches of insulation around the outsides. And you can buy a 24 footer or 36 footer, I believe they go up to, in a C class motorhome. We call it a C class when you've got the chassis at the front and then they build the RV on the back. You can also buy truck campers and put it on a truck, or you've also got a tow behind, which is a little bit more difficult in mountain slippery roads. But I would check out something like Bigfoot RVs. I thought they were fantastic and actually bought myself a Bigfoot RV. And this is the RV that I live in the summertime. So I know the Bigfoots very well. We spend the whole summer on the Oregon coast. And to tell you a little secret, I actually live in RVs about 10 months a year. So there's really only about 2 months where I actually live in a house. The rest of the year, I'm spending in RVs, either up in Alaska, on the Oregon coast, and for a while I was traveling backwards and forwards to Australia, and I have a Ford Transit, very similar to a Sprinter van there, which I've built into my own camper. So in those 23 years, I think I have owned about 6 different motorhomes. I've built my own vans a couple of times. I have had some small B class, they call it B class RVs, which are smaller van styles. This one's called a C class, and I've had the Bigfoot and that original Coachman Catalina that I bought up in Seattle. And that V that I bought in Seattle, if I go back to that story, the plan was to actually sell it at the end of the 12 months traveling around the Alaska, but I fell in love with Alaska. I fell in love with the people up there. The girls are badass. I wanted to be like them. And I also fell in love with the sexy heli ski guy named Steve, and he's now my husband of 16 years. So when it came time to sell that RV, which I did put it on the market just to keep my parents happy, but I ended up putting it into storage in Anchorage, and I stored my RV in Anchorage for the next 12 years. And I would travel back up to Alaska and spend 3 to 4 months a year in February, March, April, or May every year, because that's the best time for skiing. And I would pull it out of storage and live in this RV. But some of the mistakes that I made in that original RV actually created its demise. And by the time the end of those 12 years were over, the RV was not worth very much at all. And I'll tell you why in just a little bit. So I've talked about if you want to buy your own RV, especially for winter camping, but there's also going to be people here who want to know how to improve your own RV for winter camping. And these are my top 6 little tips that you could possibly do to your RV, or maybe you already have them. And the biggest thing that you can do is get yourself a diesel heater. Those things are brilliant, especially if your vehicle runs on diesel already. If it doesn't matter, you can have another a tank put in there, but a diesel heater is the best type of heat you can get because it's a dry heat and it's not causing condensation like the propane or catalytic heaters. I've actually seen a lot of people, I wish I could have found a photo for you, but people actually up in Alaska put wood stoves in their RVs as well. And they'll put in a wood stove, put a pipe out the roof. And again, a wood stove is that great dry heat. And they'll be able to run those heaters all night long, which is going to be an advantage to many people. Having spare batteries. Batteries is something that is really difficult to deal with in cold weather. And I'll give you some more tips on keeping your batteries charged. But having some spare batteries, having extra auxiliary batteries, and some way of jump starting your batteries as well. They've got those really clever little small little boxes that you can jumpstart your batteries. Those things are always a great idea as well. Spend some money on some good window covers. That is definitely going to help seal in the heat for a little while at night, and it's also going to help with condensation on the windows. Spend some money on some good LED light globes because that is not going to drain your battery as much. They don't take as much power. And that's a huge advantage if you switch all of the lights that come standard in your van or your RV with LED. If you are running propane, a lot of the RVs, like my original one, had a big tank that was underneath the RV that you fill up. And it was a great idea to get a propane adapter so that I could actually attach it to a small little bottle that you can go and swap out or fill up to swap over, just in case you want to park somewhere for a long time and you don't want to have to drive to town and fill up with propane all the time. And another cool little tip I've got for you is getting an oil bar heater, especially if you don't have that diesel heater or wood stove. The oil bar heaters are those old fashioned things which have the slots, they have oil inside them. And so when you are running your generator or you're able to get some power to your RV, that oil heater heats up and it holds its heat for a long time. So even when you turn everything off, that bar heater is going to hold its heat for a long time. And it's a great place that you can dry a towel or have under the table to create a little warm environment as well. So those are a couple of little tips for improving your RVs. I could get into way more detail. And if you jump into some of the RV groups that talk about winter camping, there is a million ideas. You can spend $1 million on upgrading your RV. But a lot of the people that are talking about winter RVing are talking about parking it and then putting skirting around the bottom and insulating pipes. Those guys aren't moving. What I'm talking about tonight is actually using your RV as a daily driver, parking it in the mountains. You are not in a campground. You are not plugged into power. You are off the grid. And so what happened was after about, I don't know, 8 years maybe, I decided that catalytic heater was going to be a good idea for my RV. They call them Mr. Buddies, and you can buy those really cheap, about $99, and get the bottles or attach it with a hose to a propane tank. And I thought this was going to be a great idea to heat my RV. What I didn't realize is that when we're using propane heat, and especially those catalytic heaters, they are creating so much condensation. We already have problems with condensation from burning propane when we're cooking, our breath, and especially if you're using propane heaters as well. Condensation is a really big problem in cold temperatures. And so I thought this catalytic heater was big, great. But all of a sudden we started realizing there was water dripping down the windows. And what I didn't realize is we were actually getting condensation between the walls. And eventually that turns to mold. And eventually you are creating an unhealthy environment to live in inside your RV. And that was the demise. My great idea of staying warm in the winter was a terrible idea. And that was the death of my original RV. Now, after my RV died, I had to make the decision, am I going to buy another RV and store it every year in Alaska, or am I going to rent an RV? Now, RV rentals up in Alaska are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. If you go up to Alaska in the summertime, the roads are full of RVs. It's one of the most popular ways for tourists and sightseers to check out Alaska. But in the wintertime, most of them close down. There's only actually two RV dealerships or rental places that will rent you an RV in the wintertime because they come with a lot of rules, right? If you are renting an RV in the wintertime, there is no running water in that RV. And using the toilet, if you're only in it for a week or two, you can use the toilet and they give you jugs of antifreeze to pour down there instead of water. But I'm in it for 3 months, so there's no way I can use the toilet because it would fill up and it would freeze too quickly. But when I rent my RV, and I've been doing this for about 10 years at Clipper Ship Motorhomes, they always give me a really nice RV, and I always make sure before I get up there, I send them an email. Hey guys, make sure you give me a spare battery. Make sure you give me the best tires because I'm driving on snowy roads. And a lot of the RVs, because they're used so much in the summertime, they can have bald summer tires on them. I always make sure that they give me a battery jumper as well, which is awesome. And you want to make sure when you get up there and you rent your RV that you have a really good look around the RV and take photos of it. Make sure you are documenting any dings or cracks in the window or anything that is wrong with the RV. And it's actually a good thing. If you've already got a crack in the windshield, that means that if you do get in another crack, you're not going to be charged for it. They're not going to give you the best RV, and you don't necessarily want the best RV in the wintertime because they do get a bit beat up if you are going in and out with snowy feet or ski boots and putting your ski gear in and outside the RVs. Don't worry if they're not giving you the nicest one. Just make sure everything is working. I love to have all my own cooking stuff, my own pans. I always take everything out that they've filled the cupboards with so that I can fill it with all of my own cooking stuff, clothing, bedding, and extra foam. Make sure the slide out is working. A lot of the new RVs have the slides, which are awesome. They give us so much more room inside the RVs, but I'm hesitant with a lot of them because they tend to have problems, especially in cold weather. They can ice up, or if it starts snowing during the night when you have the slide open, you've got problems. So make sure the slides are all working before you take it out. This is one of the Conquest. That is a 28-footer RV that has a slide out in it and has a bedroom at the back. I tend to like that layout the best, and check out the layouts that they have available for renting an RV. But you can see it's quite a nice motorhome. It has a lot of storage for me to put all of my kites and ski gear and stuff like that. When we're renting the RV, I want to talk about some of the systems that I use. Let's just talk about driving and parking, which is something we all know how to do, and maybe you don't think too much about it, but you want to think about making sure that you just drive nice and slow. That means you're going to conserve fuel when you're going from A to B. And then when you're choosing a place to park, want to make sure that you try and get as flat as possible. And that can be really tricky. I might drive around a car park a couple of times trying to find the right area to get flat. In the summertime, it's really easy. You can put a piece of wood or maybe you've got a ramp in order to get level. But when the surface is icy, it is really hard to get up onto those ramps. Everything slips. Try and find a flat place. And for those of you who aren't wind lovers like myself, as I've already mentioned, I love to snow kite, which is the winter version of kiteboarding. I use my kite with my skis on to be towed up the mountains. Always make sure that you park your RV or van facing into the wind. The RV and vans are more aerodynamic that way. Also, it means if you open the doors, they're not going to be blown open. And also, I've seen people that park cross to the wind and their RV rocks all night and they don't get a very good night's sleep. They're more like a yachty being on a boat on the water if you park crossways to the wind. So always think about when you're parking, where's the flat spot? Which way is the wind coming from? And do some forecasting if you have to, because there may be no wind when you get there, and then it's going to pick up during the night. One of the biggest tips they give you when you're renting the RV, and I'm going to reinforce that, is starting your engine in the morning. Try and get it running for about an hour in the morning and also at night. So the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I'm going to bounce up to the front with my sleeping bag on, and I'm going to start that engine and get the engine running. That's going to do a few things. It is going to start charging all the batteries. It's also going to start the heat that comes out of those vents up at the front of the vehicle. And it's also going to start defogging the window and getting it warmed up to try and get the ice off the RV, especially if you need to drive somewhere not long after that you get up. So you want to run your engine and possibly even run it for about an hour in the mornings and then turn it on again at night. Again, it's going to give you that nice heat. It's going to give your battery a charge before that battery is shut down for the night and put into the cold. Now, the RVs that I rent come with a generator, and the generator is great. My husband loves it when he wants to run the popcorn maker, or if we're wanting to charge the batteries of our computers and our electronic devices. But use it sparingly. You'll find that if you just try and start your generator in the morning and it's been really cold overnight, that generator will not start. You need to start the engine first, let it warm up, and then start the generator. And you'll find that once it has the charge trickling from the engine battery, it will start up quite easily. One of my pet peeves is I get up in the morning, my computer's dead because I've fallen asleep watching a movie, and it is so cold it won't take a charge. You plug the Apple plug in and it won't charge. And so I need to put my laptops or phones in front of a heater vent and try and warm them up. Once the batteries warm up, they will then take a charge. And use your propane heat sparingly. I'm not going to make any friends telling people this, but I recommend not having any heat at night. If you leave the propane heat on the thermostat when you're in a cold environment like Alaska, what's going to happen is it's going to turn on a regular basis, because no matter how many window covers, no matter how insulated those walls are, you are losing heat out all of the windows, and the heater just keeps coming on. Now, those propane heaters also are running a fan. And what runs a fan? The battery. And so if you turn your propane heat on all night, the chances are you're going to wake up to a flat battery in the morning, and you'll find that the heater has stayed on all night, but it's now blowing cold air, and it's eliminated the benefits of heat. So my suggestion is warm the RV up at night. You're cooking, you've got the stove going, turn the engine on for a little bit. So you've got the heat. Make sure it's nice and comfortable while you're having dinner and your desserts and hanging out. And then when you're ready for bed, jump in your sleeping bag and get a good sleeping bag. And maybe you want to sleep in a beanie as well and with socks on. Rug up at night and turn that heat off. That's going to do a couple of things. It's going to conserve your propane, it's going to conserve your battery, and it's also going to help you acclimatize. Hang on, in American we call that acclimating. Did I say it right? Acclimating, so that you start not actually feeling the cold as much. If we spend a lot of time in a warm environment, we go outside and, oh my God, it's like jumping in a cold swimming pool. You freeze your butt off. So the more you can get your body used to living in a lower temperature, the less you feel the cold. So use your propane heat sparingly. Otherwise, you're going to kill your battery. You're going to run out of propane, and you're going to have to spend all that money and fuel to drive to town, which can be nearly an hour away for me, in order to fill up the propane again. And before you go to bed, close the slides. It's really nice having all the slides open, but they don't seal very well. You're going to lose a lot of heat out of those. And if it starts snowing during the night, you've got a real problem, because it gets in the tracks and you'll find that you can't close the slide when you want to. And then you've got to get up there and clear all the ice and the snow out. So keep your slides closed when you're not using them as well. Hope you guys are enjoying these tips. One of the other problems you can have if you don't park flat is that we have the heat on in the RV, the snow on the roof starts melting, and all of a sudden you get a lot of dripping. And overnight, when it gets cold, that dripping freezes, and you can have icicles coming down all over the RV, and it makes for great photos. But it can actually, we've actually gotten stuck in the RV before because the icicles went over the door and we couldn't open it in the morning because it had just all iced up. Another benefit of trying to park flat or slightly nose up so that all the water drains off the back of the RV. The other thing you want to think about is when it is snowing, getting snowed in. You can see here the plough come along and ploughed the road, but there is no way I'm going to get out of this spot without shoveling. So making sure you have a shovel handy and enough energy and elbow grease to dig out your RV is always important. But what I do is I always make sure that if it's going to dump snow and it's going to be really deep, that I park my RV close to where I know they're going to plow, so I don't have miles to dig out, because it's a high priority for those plows to get the roads plowed rather than the car parks. And I know I've been stuck in a few car parks in my time. I'm going to show you my favorite photo again. And you can see that there are round tracks in the car park. Now, that's not just this Aussie girl doing donuts and woohoo, having fun in the RV. This is actually my technique when I find a car park that I want to pull into that's fresh snow. Nobody's been in the car park yet, and I can't tell how deep it is. How deep is it? Am I going to pull into the car park and get stuck? Sometimes I'll actually park on the side of the road, get out and walk into the car park to see how deep it is. Other times, like this time, I thought, boy, it's close. I think I can get in there. But what I'll do is I'll drive around in a circle more than once. So I'm actually creating my own track so that I'm actually plowing a track for me to get in and out of the car park again. Or maybe I was just doing donuts. So I've mentioned some techniques that I use for staying warm in the RV, and my favorite ones are yoga mats. If you can get some yoga mats, which are great for us to look after our bodies, they can also be used to put along the walls around the bed for when we're sleeping, because otherwise our breathing can tend to create condensation, and you'll find that all of a sudden water starts running down, the sheet starts getting wet around the bed, and it is not a pleasant situation to deal with. So the more that you can insulate around the bed where you're sleeping, that's going to keep you warmer and stop that condensation. Getting a good sleeping bag is so important. Spend the money on a sleeping bag. It's cheaper than a diesel heater. So get yourself a good sleeping bag, and you can get sleeping bags that are designed for -40, and you are gonna be toasty in one of those. And if you've got a partner, you can actually get the double-sized sleeping bags that fit 2 people in. And I mentioned warm clothes, and that's so important. And as much as, I know many of us love to sleep naked, when we're in the cold RV at night, to sleep in your thermal underwear is a great idea. That's gonna keep you warm, especially if you need to get up in the middle of the night and pee, and having socks and a beanie on is important. Now, one of the tips that I learned from Arctic explorers who love to camp down in Antarctica and Greenland is they use Nalgene bottles for hot water. And so if we can boil some water before we go to bed and fill up our Nalgene, put it in our bed, put it down in our sleeping bag, that is going to give us a really nice source of heat down in our feet so that we can fall asleep. And you'll find that in the morning time also, you have got water that is not frozen, because sometimes when it's really cold, our water bottles can freeze. And I actually put anything that I don't want to freeze in the refrigerator. It sounds counterintuitive, but even your facial moisturizer, yeah, all sorts of things can freeze if you leave them in the bathroom. So you want to put things in the refrigerator because that is insulated in there. Having a few fleece blankets, and you can get those from a couple of bucks at Walmart. So even if you're flying into Anchorage and renting an RV, to have a few spare fleece blankets is a great idea. And the RV company will actually give you as many fleece blankets as you want. And you can use them to put over you, over your sleeping bags. But also, I like to set them up at night over the front of the RV where cold air can start coming in. Use those to set yourself up like a little cubby house, like a little kid, building a nice warm environment in there. Window covers is also a great idea. Hey, Adrian, nice to see you. Thanks for coming. I'm chatting about ways to stay warm in our RV in the wintertime. Now, window covers, because I rent an RV every year, I have gone out and I've spent some money on some of the silver insulated, what do we call it? Padding that you send stuff with at the post office, right? And you can get that and cut it out in the shape of the vents that go in the roof. And you can also get it to cut in the shape of the windows. And that's great if you've got your own RV, it's worth spending the money on that. And even if you're renting for a long period of time, that's going to help with the condensation on the windows and help with insulating the heat there. Now, talking about condensation, and I've mentioned it a few times as being a problem around our bed, being a problem with catalytic heaters, it's a great idea to have a bunch of towels, especially around the front of the RV, near the driver's seat and the passenger seat, so that you can mop up that condensation as it starts to melt. You'll get up in the morning and there'll be ice all along the windows. And as you turn on the heat, everything starts to melt. And so, having some towels to soak up that water is a good idea. And hanging them up on hooks to dry during the day tends to allow us to do it again the next day. I mentioned having a shovel, and the rental RVs don't always come with shovels. If you're a backcountry skier, you're already going to have one in your avalanche pack, but you might want to make sure you've got a really good shovel to get yourself out if you get snowed in. And the other tip I've got for you is getting a long snow scraper. If you just have those short little ones, it's really hard. The RVs are tall. Maybe you've got long arms, but for me, it's really hard to scrape the ice off the window with those short little scrapers. So getting one with a long handle is a great idea. And I'll just show you this slide in true Aussie style of Crocodile Dundee. That's not a puffy. This is a puffy. Now, we can't control the weather and the temperature outside, but we can control the thickness of our puffy jacket and we can control the thickness of our sleeping bags. So this is where you really want to invest your money, is into some good puffy down, goose down if possible, gear. And I love it. I live in my puffy pants, puffy jackets, puffy skirts, puffy bib and brace. Just embrace the puffy, because then it's like you're living in your sleeping bag all day. You don't feel the cold and you can go outside and hang out at the bonfires and hang out in the party and hang outside watching the northern lights and still be comfortable. And that's what this is all about, is trying to give some tips to you to stay warm so that we can enjoy our winter adventures. You can actually see in this photo, I'm double downing. I've got 2 down jackets on at least, and probably my puffy pants as well. With courage, dreams can be a reality. I think a lot of people get scared off of winter RVing because they're so scared of getting cold. They're scared of snowy roads. But I want to tell you that even this Aussie girl who grew up in Australia in warm temperatures and who'd never driven on snowy roads or even driven on the other side of the road, if I can do it, you can too. And it is a great challenge and it's great fun. And boy, you get the best adventures going to winter environments, to ski, to snowboard, to snow kite, or even just to view the glaciers and northern lights. As I mentioned, I'm not actually selling anything tonight. I am just sharing my passion and my knowledge, and I hope that came through in my presentation tonight. You can scan this code and you can book a call with me. I would love to meet anybody who's into the same sorts of things as me. I would love to share my knowledge with you so that my knowledge is passed on and not taken to the graveyard, as I mentioned. And please think about doing that. I'd love to meet you and have a chat. And Please, if you're not already, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook. Every Wednesday, I go live on Facebook for Windy Wednesday, and I share tips on wind and weather and kites and whatever lessons that I'm learning each week. And I've also got a YouTube channel. You can learn about snow kiting and also watch some of the replays of these trainings that I'm doing. You'll find me at Adrenogen. My website, adrenogen.com, Adrenogen on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Adrenogen everywhere. So I hope you have enjoyed my presentation tonight on winter RVing. I can talk about it forever, and I know there's so much more to learn and to know. And if you've enjoyed what I've shared tonight, please let me know. Please ask me some questions. I'll run another one. Let's do this again. And I would love to open up the chat to anyone who would like to say hi and ask a question or share a story with me. I know we've got Cheryl and Steve and Richard and Dionys. Did I say it right? Please turn your microphones on and say hi.
Hi, Jam.
Hi, how you doing?
Pretty good. What about you?
I'm doing great. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Did you learn anything new?
It's great. Yeah, learning new stuff. I just got a new camper trailer.
Sweet. What did you
Yeah,
get?
it's forest river, no boundaries.
Oh, nice. Those
Yeah.
Florida rivers are excellent. Is it a truck camper or
It's a you tow behind the truck camper.
like a fifth wheel?
Yeah, but it's smaller. You can tow it with a small pickup truck. So
Nice. And have you got
yeah.
some winter adventures planned? Where
I
you,
actually did. I took it out a few weekends just to try it, see what works, what not. And yeah, I'm buying different heaters now.
well, I
I
hope
want to I got a diesel heater. I want to hook up and try that and see how that works at night, and a few other electric heaters as well. So, yeah.
good job. The that I mentioned that at the beginning. I don't know if you were there yet. I mentioned diesel heaters are definitely the number one option, and then getting an electric oil bar heater tends to be a good one too because they hold their heat for so long. But avoid the catalytic propane heaters because they do cause a lot of condensation. And
Yeah.
will I see you up in Alaska? Are you coming to visit?
Yeah, I'm planning to be in Thompson Pass sometime on February, probably next year for Kite Fest, or maybe slightly before that. So, yeah, I'll probably see you out there
Excellent.
in
Kite
Thompson Pass.
festivals early April, but I'll
Oh,
be there.
April.
I'll be there
Yeah.
from probably first week of February. I'm one of the first people to rent an RV, and the first month or so, there's very few people driving around in RV. Look
Yeah.
forward to seeing you there.
Yeah. Looking forward as well.
Hey, Richard.
Hi, Jen. Thank you. Yeah, I especially like that idea about the oil-filled heater. How many hours does it tend to hold heat for? A couple hours?
It depends, yeah, it depends how big a one you get, and the cool thing is that they're old-fashioned, so you can buy them cheap at secondhand stores. I got one for $2 at a secondhand store, which was really great, and putting them under the table. Normally, most of these have got a table with 2 chairs on the side. If you can get it under there, it heats up that whole area, and putting something like a towel over the top, that can tend to insulate a bit. Yeah, that stays hot for a couple of hours afterwards for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I got a 1983 Bigfoot camper that goes on the back of my truck, and the
Nice.
cord on that, pretty good shape still, and installed a diesel heater this fall. March, I plan to go up to maybe Sunshine Meadows around Banff, Alberta, Canada. To
Beautiful. Lake Louise, Banff, Sunshine, beautiful, beautiful spot.
Banff does have a winter ski, or sorry, a winter camp spot with electrical plugins for $40 a night. So I might just stay there too because there's showers and everything there.
Perfect. If you've got that option, take it. Most
Yeah.
of the places I go don't have that option. All of the campgrounds tend to shut down in Alaska, so we don't have that option. We go down to the harbour to have showers. That's where all the yachties and the boats people, they tend to have showers and laundries there. I don't know if you were here early in the talk tonight, but I have a 24-foot Bigfoot as well,
Oh,
C class. I've got a C class Bigfoot. They're beautiful RVs. They're so well made. The quality is excellent, right?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's a testament. Like, this one's in '83 and it's still in good shape. So
1983.
1983.
Wow, that's amazing.
And
Yeah,
they haven't really changed since then. Like maybe the newer ones have a slide.
mine
Uh,
doesn't have a slide either. Mine, what is mine? About a 2002. So it's 22 years old and it's a C class, 24-footer, no slides. And we just love it. We just love
okay.
it. Yeah, so
The
good.
only trailer I've had for a few years now is a 2006 Jayco Ultralight. So the ends of it are like a tent, but that's not very good for winter.
Yeah, I've seen people do that. It's a bit of a struggle. And is that the one you have to put up and down all the time as well?
This one's got solid walls from a
Does?
height point of view, but the ends fold in and fold out.
Cool, cool. You'll be loving your Bigfoot then.
Yeah, right
Thanks.
on. Thank you.
Thank, thanks for sharing. Appreciate you
Thank,
coming along.
right
Appreciate that.
on. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Cheryl, how's your van going?
It's been a challenge to stay cool in the summertime down here, so I've got it all insulated and dialed for the winter, but yeah, I haven't done much summer camping because it's just you have to get a bug screen, which I got, but then there's the little no-see-ums, and so it's yeah,
I
bring
know.
me out the winter.
I know the problem, girl. And I have the same issues with my van in Australia when I'm there. We have a lot of bugs in Australia. And I bought some mesh and some magnets and managed to create some sort of good systems there. But yeah, nothing worse than having bugs in your van at night, especially the spiders. We get big spiders too. Those
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, not too many spiders or anything, but there's little no-see-ums that unless you have the mesh grade that you put over your face, they get through everything. But yeah, just dreaming of coming up. Maybe my van will make it. I don't know. It's an awful long trip.
Yeah, yeah. My van's been sitting in Australia parked for 2 years with the same tank of diesel in it. My first mission when I get home is to see if I can get that thing running and see how much rust is all over it and if there's any snakes and spiders living in it, and all my fingers are crossed that we can get that running, and yeah, we'll
So,
have to see where we're at. But thanks for coming again. I love seeing you there. You give me so much confidence seeing your name up there. I feel like I'm just talking to you. I'm talking to a friend, and I hope you enjoyed this. I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. And I hope you enjoyed listening to my RV stories and knowledge as much as I enjoyed sharing them with you. As I mentioned, book a call if you want to chat some more. Otherwise, I will see you in Alaska, somewhere cold and snowy in your van. See you then. Bye.